Practicing golf at home gets you away from distractions of the golf course, and it gives you solitude to help develop your game. Plus, it's great to be able to work on your game when it's cold in the winter or if you live in a cold climate in general. You don't always have to drive to the golf course or the driving range to get better. A few times a week, you can sharpen your game from home. Here are some ideas for at-home practice. Mirror work can be extremely helpful in your game to improve, even if you're not on the golf course. And it can help both your putting, your short game, and your full swing. And the areas that it can help with it are going to be getting into a great setup position and the fundamentals that go into that, working on the plane of your golf swing, as well as your pivot. And lastly, working on what you and your coach have agreed upon you would like to change in your golf swing and the positions that go into that. Looking into a mirror will give you great feedback to understand the difference position that you feel you're in versus where you want to get moving forward when you get back out on the golf course. When we think about posture and good setup, how the mirror can help us with all three areas: putting, pitch shots, or short game, as well as full swing. Let's start with putting and what's important to think about, what the mirror can help us give good feedback on. As I discussed in our putting fundamentals video, great putters, two things they do well that you can monitor in the mirror. Number one is having your arms hang loosely from your shoulders. Whichever setup is best for you based on the drills from that specific video, get into that setup, let your arms hang directly from your shoulders and bring them together. You can see in the mirror whether you are doing that or not. The second fundamental we can think about is having the shaft of the putter and our forearms all in the same plane. As I set up here, then that is really important when we have the club more in the palms of our hands. And as you can see, if I drew a line up from the shaft of the putter through my forearms, they're all going to be in the same plane. So you can get in here and you can best to do it down the line with the mirror behind you. Make sure your arms are hanging below your shoulders. Make sure the shaft and forearms are in the same plane and work on your stroke from there. Now moving on to the short game, when we think about the fundamentals for setting up for a really good pitch shot. Now there are some commonalities no matter the different options that we talked about in the short game, whether you're doing a hinge and hold or you're doing more of the release pattern. You still have some commonalities of the short game. We talked about getting into that good setup position where our feet are not too far apart. They're about a club width apart. Our forward foot, our lead foot is flared out slightly. We have our pressure on our lead foot. But really the main thing we can work on in the mirror is making sure our shoulders are as level as possible. If I turn here to the mirror, if I get where my trail shoulders really tilted to the right, that's not the position we want to be in. So really almost want to feel like we're pushing our way down on our lead side before we grip the club to make sure our shoulders are as level as possible. So we've worked on our setup, getting that really good position where our shoulders are not too tilted toward our trail side. But we can practice here is, I mentioned in the short game video, too many people struggle with not getting the face open enough when they hit pitch shots. We need to get that face open regardless of which option you're using for short game to expose the bounce. And how we can think about that is getting that good setup. We put the mirror in the down the line position as we take the club to where it's parallel to the ground. We want this toe to be facing the sky. As you can see there, it's going to give you good feedback in the mirror, and we would ideally like that club to be right on plane or slightly outside of our hands. We really don't want the club to get too far to the inside with short game shots, regardless of which option you're using, the hinge and hold or the more release pattern. So really, mirror's great to work on that club face position and make sure that it's staying on plane at parallel to the ground. Now moving on to the full swing, it can be a bit of a challenge to swing indoors. We don't want to hit the ceiling or hit other furniture. So what we can do is we can just take a club and shorten it up. So we're going to grip all the way down to the metal here. And if I get into a good setup position, we'll just have the grip end just come out upon my left hip if you're a right-hander. And from here, we can work on some static positions. And what I mean by plane is it's where the club is going to be pointing throughout the golf swing. So imagine that I had a laser pointing out of the bottom of my grip. As I work through here, you can work on which option is best for you in your golf swing. Now, personally for me, I struggle getting the club flat in the halfway back position in the backswing. So it's a great drill for me to work on keeping the club in front of me. And then I get to the halfway back position, I could look in the mirror and see where that is pointed. And then as I turn to the top, make sure that that club is still on plane or pointed to where that golf ball would be. And then I can work on my nice transition as the club shallows a little bit, starts to point outside the ball. And then I could get into the delivery position here, which is where the club's more or less parallel to the ground, faces slightly to the ground. ground, and then I get into a good impact position and work up into my finish. Now, regardless of which option you and your coach have decided is best for you, you can work on those positions in the golf swing. Maybe it's more club outside your hands going back, maybe it's more inside, more across the line, more shorter laid off, whatever it might be. You can work on those positions that y'all have established is best for you inside in the mirror as great feedback. The last part of your golf swing you could work on inside is the pivot, and you really don't even need a mirror for this. You can use it if you would like for some feedback, but really you just need some space. And we've gone over this drill in other videos, but the idea is we're going to get to in a really good, strong posture, pressure in the middle of our feet, and we're going to put our hands on our shoulders. And we're just going to work on the body moving correctly. And what that means is as we work our way back, we're going to have this trail hip moving up and back. We're going to have our shoulders start to turn behind us. We're going to feel a stretch in our trail side. And then from here, we're going to press into our lead foot and then push up and turn all the way to the finish. And then once you start doing that, you can do it with some speed where you push up and back, lean, and go. So we're pushing up and back, stretching, pressing into that lead side. The ground pushes back and pushes us to our finish. That's a great pivot, a really good drill for you to do 10 to 15 times a day to really help you get back out on the golf course.